Hello, my beautiful friends. And this is a very late night recording after a very eventful and busy weekend I had with my kids. So, when you are the mother figure, sometimes late night is the only time you get to for yourself. And this is now when I'm going to be recording this video. So I hope that my thoughts are going to be clear enough for me to relay everything that I've been meaning to relay, because all the information keeps piling up and I feel like I need to continuously release it and not hold on to it waiting for the next morning, even because so much is coming in all the time. And this specific video is going to be about the power of action within the 5D, within the new realm. I don't want to call it higher realm or lower realm, just as you expand your consciousness and as you become aware of these different states of being and how reality works, you might notice that this same exact thing. But going back to my previous videos, I was telling you that I treat this digital world sort of as a 4D transitional reality, how this universal consciousness speaks to us through others, right? Because it doesn't have a body or a voice, so it uses a combination of many different voices, many different bodies. It comes through us to communicate to us certain messages, and you can, when you reach a certain state of clarity, you see this flow. It's an interactive flow. It's a beautiful thing. It's definitely not this dark thing that's happening on the web, or like the digital world is all bad. It can be perceived this way while you're going through the dark night of the soul. The dark night of the soul, I don't know, however it looked, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 50 years ago. I'm sure there was a different scenario on how it unfolded in in someone's journey. But now that we have entered this digital world, the dark night of the soul can very much emerge as this digital world trying to sort of attack you in a form of different scams or people targeting you, contacting you with weird things, bombarding you with all sorts of violent videos and stuff like that. But that's just your cleansing. That's what's happening within, and it's then reflecting in the digital world to show you sort of what's inside, and maybe things that just need to you need to let go of. So that happened to me before, so I know that it is totally possible. But then when you go through this clearing, through the dark night of the soul, and you kind of fight all these imaginary demons that manifest themselves as real things in this 3D world through the digital world, then you emerge on the other side where all you see is clarity and constant flow of communication between you and universal consciousness and this universe at large. Through your phone, through the social media, you can ask internal questions without even voicing them, depending on how thin your wall is between yourself and the environment. And you can ask questions mentally and then receive answers through your through your YouTube feed or your Instagram feed, or sometimes people will, like, you'll think a thought and somebody will send you a text message with a thumbs up or a thumbs down and like a sad face, right? So a lot of times that's just you communicating with your immediate environment and your immediate environment communicating back with you. And I guess if you're still in a level where you're still thinning down that wall, then a lot of times this will only happen if you speak something or type something in, and then you'll get, you know, all sorts of commercials about that one thing, right? That's how it started with me, and then it gradually progressed to the point where now I don't have to speak anything, all right? I don't sound it out. I just think a question, and then videos come through, and all I have to do is be open to watch those videos because they're so informative. And even though I think they're unrelated to my question that I asked internally, they absolutely are. And this consciousness can speak to me in such a beautiful way through certain videos that it doesn't give me a direct answer to the question, but makes me connect the dots on my own, right? It's kind of like the best teacher you can have. Instead of feeding you information, it is offering you similar scenarios where you're like, oh, okay, you still come to the conclusion on your own. So in the previous videos, we had one of the videos where I watched the I started, I think, recording when I was talking about Alex Honnold and his solo video. What is it? What's the name of the video? I can't believe I'm forgetting it right now. Free solo, right? When he was free soloing El Capitan, and that video came to me as I was going through divorce and as I was going through this point where I internally realized that, you know, am I going to do this? Am I going to climb this mountain solo, right? Without any support system behind me. So the universe spoke to me through that video, showing me that, you know, what I'm going through can be related, although scaled down or just scaled differently, completely differently, but it is very similar to somebody who is doing this on this grander scale by climbing this crazy difficult mountain and doing it completely without any support and succeeding. And I remember that video cutting me so deeply, getting so deep into my heart, and I was like, wow, I can't believe, you know, this video just came to me as such a beautiful support system. All I had to do is just see deeper into it and uncover this beautiful message. Now that I'm saying this, another wonderful thing comes to mind, and this is off topic, but I remember when I first started going through my major awakening stage, one of the first things I saw, I remember walking out, I was living at the house back then, and I walked out in the front yard and I saw a crow, which crows were and still are like all around me since, you know, I've gotten through this major awakening phase. I saw a crow flying from my neighbor's backyard, and in her beak there was an envelope with a red stamp, like, you know, those old red stamps, and she just flew and flew away. And I was like, what is that? Like a letter, a message? How can I even tell? I didn't have my camera to film it, but it was clear as day right in front of me, right there in the physical form. And that's when I first understood that, you know, this is going to be, a lot of it is going to be unbelievable, and a lot of it is going to be something so shocking for others to hear that they will probably question my sanity, because if I was to tell at that point to anyone that there was a crow just now, a humongous like raven, like I don't know, like in Harry Potter, like the Harry Potter owl, but only it wasn't an owl, which I also had the owl experiences like with physical 3D owls. And this raven was holding this letter and with this old school stamp on it. But coming back, I realized that as I was looking at it, I knew that the letter was for me, that it was like some sort of communication, but it never got to me in a physical form, in a form of a letter, right? That crow flew by with it and showed me that there is something intended for me to read, to understand, but I will never receive it in my hands in the form of a 3D letter. And now I'm realizing that it was always intended for me to receive this magical communication in a different way, through just believing and opening my eyes and going deeper and deeper into basically seeing the depth of certain things. So then after the Alex Honnold video, there were the videos about Everest, and these are, I'm just talking about two, but it happens all day long, every day. I get videos that answer my innermost questions in the most beautiful way, and all I have to do is literally ask, and it's like some sort of like internal thing that instantly communicates with all of my feed on all of my digital devices, which are now like an extension of ourselves. In a way, we have this technological body, right? We have our spiritual body, mental body, emotional body, physical body, and technological body, which is when you become one, when you merge with yourself, when you are in alignment, this technological body, guess what? It's also going to be in alignment with you. It's going to be helping you to reach this vast amount of information, but it will use thoughts, words that you say, internal questions that you have, or maybe hashtags that you use to bring you information necessary for your next step, for your development, to answer the question, to help you. So when you're in alignment, the digital body, the digital world, the 4D and the technological body, they unite with you and they guide and lead you, and they're no longer are as one may perceive this as, this AI, artificial intelligence, like bad thing. So after the Alex Honnold videos, there were the Everest videos, and you can watch about them, like the sort of messages that they uncovered within me that answered my deep questions. And I got sort of stuck on these Everest videos just because I love mountains, and just as much as Everest calls to people, Mount Shasta called to me, and I've been traveling back and forth since 2019, religiously going there as often as I can, just because of the way I feel there is completely different. That is my 5D world, where I'm in constant flow, and as I enter LA, I feel heaviness, I feel pain in my body, I feel I'm very sensitive, so I feel this grid, over the city, but nevertheless my heart is here within my 3 children. So I'm gonna take it as it is and just persevere and do whatever is necessary for my body to be grounded to survive in the city for the sake of my boys. So by the way, when I travel from Los Angeles to Shasta, which are just a physical representations of my internal state, it is an 8.5 hour drive, to 8.5 to 10 hours sometimes, depending on traffic. As I drive on the 5, and it's a pretty straight road, and it is so barren. There is nothing on the sides of it. You're passing several big cities, but in between it's all just, a dry, not desert, but it's monofarms, but they are very dry. So there's not much there. And a lot of times I'll just turn on my phone and I'll listen to all sorts of videos. And these 8.5 hours, they pass by so quick. But as I'm listening to all the information that is coming in, consecutively for like 8.5 hours as I'm driving, all sorts of videos, all sorts of audiobooks that are coming to mind or being recommended by people that I know, I realized that transition between Los Angeles and Mount Shasta is my 4D. So I'm moving from 3D Los Angeles through the 5, and I feel like because I'm so connected with the digital world there, that it's sort of like I'm driving and I see this reality on the side of me, but technically I'm just transitioning from one state of being to another state of being. So I'm transitioning from this 3D mindset to this expanded 5D mindset, which to me is then represented by Mount Shasta, by being there, where I can, just be completely connected all the time without having to be in this very grounded but also very masculine mode that the city requires of me sometimes. Well, more on that later. So yesterday I was watching another video that randomly came to my phone because I was so stuck in this on these Everest videos that as I'm like scrolling through the videos, when something new popped up, I just clicked on it. I was like, I'm already tired myself about this Everest thing. And guess what? It was an interesting video that also answered a question that came up a day before. Although this specific video was about a winemaking industry in California. It was an interview between two gentlemen. One is a wine grower and the other one is the interviewer. I will try to link the video below if I find it. But in essence, the video was about how wine industry in California is suffering so much right now, and that a lot of places are going out of business, and a lot of grapes are rotting away on these farms. And the gentleman went ahead to say that what he thinks the problem is, and he spoke of other countries producing this cheap wine, and because of the legalities of how things are being sold and tariffs and stuff, it is cheaper for big companies to get that wine from there and transport it here and then label it as California wine and all that stuff. So basically the gentleman had a lot of ways to explain of why this industry was collapsing, the California wine industry. But I could not I heard a much deeper message within it, and that was a message that pertained directly to me. I'm gonna turn off the AC. Give me 1 second. I'm back. So I heard something much deeper and something that answered this, not even a question, but a conversation I had with my kids just a few days back when we were driving out of our apartment and going to the gas station, and there were protesters, or should I say peaceful demonstrators, on the streets with signs, and cars were honking, and basically they had stuff about like the president, on it, like different banners and such. And my kids said, "Mom, well, there's like 10 of them right there. What do they think? They're gonna make a difference?" And I said, whoa, wait a minute. You're not talking to a 5D mom, are you? Well, I said, this is how things work in this reality. In this new reality that we're all in, it's just some of us, well, maybe we've always been here. Maybe it's just me also, finally realizing how things work. But I said, if you take action on something, then in your world, tomorrow, things will change. Things will look completely different. And me and you, because we didn't take that action, things will stay exactly the same. Or, maybe things will continue to happen to us rather than through us, right? Because let's say that's not our action to take, or that's something that's not interests us. So we're going to be sort of independent from that decision. But in their world, even though there might be just 10 people who decided to speak their truth, right? They are going to wake up to a completely new reality. And this video with wine industry going out of business and collapsing is a direct reflection of that in my life. That's why that video came to me, because about 3 years ago, I made a decision to stop drinking fully and completely and never touch alcohol again. And I've had many years of drinking. At some points it was an unhealthy way, although it was like, a couple of glasses of wine an evening. But where I am at right now, I see that even a tiny bit of alcohol really disconnects you from the clarity of your vision, which is so important in 5D. When you know that you're creating your own reality, that reality is coming through you and is not happening to you, when you realize how true that is, you're going to start making completely different choices and decisions, and see how different substances are so dangerous to things that you create. And with this wine industry, so as the gentleman was saying, like, why, the interviewer is asking him, why do you think this is happening? And the gentleman is finding like these gazillion reasons why, because of the laws, because of this. And I'm sitting there and I know that it is happening because I decided not to drink wine or not to drink any alcohol anymore, because I decided to be in clarity. So in my world, I have now received this video sometime later that tells me that because you made this personal choice, that back then, this is what's happening now. Because you stuck to it and you never touched alcohol again, this is what's happening to that industry within your world. It's going to be non-existent. It's going out of business. Now, guess what? If you're enjoying wine, you're probably getting a completely different feed, in your 4D reality, in your transitional reality. You're probably getting commercials as to where to go and buy good wine, or maybe that industry is doing so well, or maybe that now there are so many great options, such as organic wines or whatever else, right? So your reality thus will have a completely different, that's where our reality is split. You're going to be living in a world where that industry is thriving while I go into the world because of a personal choice I made where that industry is now dying. And it is really dependent on my personal choice that I decided to stick with. And so it goes for other people. So what do I say to sorry, I'm just hearing, probably my neighbor is coming home. There's, everything is so close in this building. Now, this is not like a single step thing where, I decided not to do something and then that industry collapses. Now that I watched that interview, I also see the perception of the winemaker going out of business, and I can, feel certain way towards his family because now they don't know what to do, right? They had this life that they were very good at. They had a full community that was always helping each other. It's like a whole world out there, right, that now is affected by my decision. So what happens then? Do you just drop that world and allow it to figure itself out or not? Well, that's when the power of imagination comes to life. Let's put it this way. That's when it's very important to imagine things a certain way. And in my imagination, this is how it's going to work out for everyone's benefit. So a year ago, I actually started diving deeply into the history of United States and how the land was taken from the native people and how all this land that was so abundant in native plants and variety of things was then turned into these agricultural pockets and then monocrops, which, if you think of it, clearing out acres and acres of land to grow grapes is monocropping, right? It is not very necessarily that healthy for the land that used to bear a variety of things on that land, right? So in my reality, because I already know that story, and I also know how native people are beginning to warm up to the idea that our generation did not do the things that came before us. We weren't personally the ones to steal the land, to kill the people, right? And now this merging is happening between the two, the original nations and the nations that came from the old world into this new world. So now that this blending is happening back in, I see how this land can now be turned back into its pre-Columbian state, slowly and gradually, of course, over time, but with replanting with native plants that have deeper roots, that give the variety, create a better variety of things to farm on that land, sort of a more sustainable agriculture. And I see that that is where that story will go in my book, in my world. So what happens in the world of the farmer is entirely up to his internal knowing, his confidence, his internal viewing. But in my reality, that is what's going to happen. They're going to come into because I'll explain a little bit deeper. Because the farmer during the interview mentioned many things, like, okay, first of all, that the grapes are rotting away, that, you know, because they can't sell, because the buyers didn't come. So first and foremost, to me, I'm wondering, how can you let something rot away? Why not just give it away for free? Is it something that will drive the price down? How are you even, you know, thinking about it in that perspective still? But I do understand. But, you know, I don't know if wine grapes are edible, but I know there is Muscat grapes, right? The ones that grow Muscat wine. There's so many grapes that are winemaking grapes that are edible, you know. And he explained that they cannot make raisins with them because these grapes have seeds in them. Fantastic, you know. Let's not make raisins. Let's just get the grapes and give them away, I don't know, to children. Allow others to come and pick them off the wine. Create a free party, free grapes party. I mean, there are so many things you can do instead of letting them rot away because no buyer with the right price came, right? That's where kind of like that wall is. And then immediately, since this is no longer working, employ people who know what else you can grow on this land that will be as, you know, lucrative to sustain your family, but also good for the land and good for others. I mean, they're saying that now they don't know because now they have to abandon land, sell the land, nobody wants to buy the land. You don't have to do any of that. There is so many things you can do. You can connect with the native tribes and ask them for their knowledge, what they know, you know, if any of it was saved in those regions, which I know many amazing native writers who now live in those wine countries, and they know how to harvest so many different things, and they're incredible chefs. And I think, you know, if the two came together in a way and maybe they allowed the natives to work on the land, you know, then things could turn around really quickly. So in my story, in my book, this is what's going to happen. And very interestingly, this is also happening, and this is going to be just to give you the complete full picture, the complete 360 of this internal thing that's been unfolding within me for this last couple of years, this understanding of our land, you know, our environment, where America came from, why are things the way they are, why is the food so derived of nutritional value, why are we so disconnected from the land? Because we are on the land, but we're not of it, right? We erased its history, we erased the people, we erased and took out all the native plants and brought in everything from the old world and placed it here, hoping that it will survive. But the seed, you know, that we've planted was rotten to begin with. That's not, you know, nothing healthy can grow out of it for forever, right? So this restructuring is sort of just coming back. We can restructure and just come back to where, you know, we needed to be in the first place, and plant something something that holds a seed that holds fairness, that holds all these great values of honoring the original nations of this land, honoring their knowledge, maybe re-educating ourselves as to what we can plant, how we can then harvest it, how we can process it to get nutritional value out of things that are meant to be grown here. You know, those grape varieties that are growing there, they're not supposed to be growing there. They're not native. They're, you know, it takes a lot of work, not only from people, but also from the earth mama, to sustain those varieties, because they have shallower roots. You know, they are, because they have shallower roots than the native grapes and the native plants. The soil is prone to erosion, and there's just so many different implications of what we have done. And then this restructuring just gives us all like a fresh start on things, and coming back to the roots, to the true roots of this land. And this is a very sensitive topic. I acknowledge and I recognize it, but I do want to interweave it into this conversation, because it is also a part of this picture, and that is this knowledge that I acquired through 4D again. And this is kind of like, it just bombards into my 4D once in a while, although I don't watch TV and I don't necessarily know some of the things that go on in the bigger environment around me, because I'm still, you know, focusing on my immediate 360 and how I can internally connect directly to it and manifest things around me. I'm not yet maybe ready to go into this you know, big scale reality thing, but because I live in a big city, and sometimes I hear the news from other people, and sometimes, you know, there are physical people standing outside and protesting certain things. But the immigration, of course, you know, I think we're all in this we're all aware of what's happening with the immigrants and people who don't have documents, legal documents, right, being sent back to their country of origin right now. And a lot of those people are the people who work on those farms, right, on the land. And that, I don't necessarily say that they work on the wine lands, but nevertheless, before saying before saying what I will say, I will tell you how I feel about that, just to make it very clear. I understand the pain, because I've been an illegal immigrant here on myself. My mom has been an illegal immigrant myself, so I think every story is so individual, right, and should be nurtured and should be approached as an individual story, right? In every nation, in every situation, there are people who mean harm, and there are people who mean well and are, you know, bringing good things regardless of their status. So I know how big of a struggle that is, and how scary it is when you don't have your papers. Now, that said, I also, in my world, I trust the universe that life doesn't happen to us, life happens through us. And therefore, whatever decision any person faces at a certain time, it is their point in their journey. And that decision, no matter how difficult it might seem, it might actually be the very best decision in a long term, in a big story. And a lot of times it's hard to see it in the moment, right? But what I'm trying to say is that I know that people who are ready to move beyond the fear, they will be able to stay. And that's how it happened to me. That's my personal experience with this whole immigration thing. I'll tell you an incredible story. When I was flying here to my mom has been here 10 years. She came here 10 years before I did, and for 10 years she couldn't get her papers straight, and then she got somehow a visa for me 10 years after I grew up, basically without her. She left when I was 7, and I came here to see her for the first time when I was 17. As I was flying from Belarus to here, I was so oblivious to this whole immigration thing. I was so, at that moment, of course it took me years and years going to consul and constantly getting denial and not believing that I will ever see my mom again. But in the moment of flying here and knowing that I'm flying to reunite with my mom, everything else was non-existent. And somehow I got approached by people in Shannon, where we had, I don't know if it's Sweden, Shannon. I had a layover there. And by immigration, I was just sitting on the bench. I was 17, I was flying by myself. I was sitting on the bench in the airport. Somebody approached me, asked me to come into the office, immigration office. They asked me several questions, and then they just put a stamp in my passport and handed me back my papers and said, that's it, you don't have to stop at the immigration in the United States. So when the plane landed in the United States, I was walking out and just thinking about my mom, that I'm just gonna see my mom. I haven't seen my mom for 10 years. And then, I remember seeing like a huge line going to this one place, and I was like, oh no, I'm gonna go the other way. I'm gonna go somewhere like where I can see my mom as soon as possible. So here I am with this pack of papers, and I just walk out where people are meeting each other, and then I see her waving, and I'm like running to her, and that's it. And I got out of the airport, and we went with her friend who owned the pizzeria, and we went, we ate some pizza, we had this reunion, and maybe a week later I received a green card in the mail. My mom at that point still didn't have a green card, and then I needed to get a social security for work, and I went to the social security office, and I had this packet of documents, and I came to them and I said, well, I need to get my social security. And they said, what is that? And I said, this is like a packet of documents I brought from Belarus. And they're like looking at me wide-eyed. How? These were supposed to be given at the border as you were going through the security, whatever, control. And I said, I don't know. And I already showed them my green card, and they're like, how did this happen? And so that was when I had absolutely no fear, and not even a thought that was entering my mind that I was somehow here illegally. I was a child who was waiting for this moment my whole life, and I was coming to see my mom. That was it. It was so pure. There was not a single doubt in my mind that this was happening, and that I've paid for it enough, and now I am just here, and I will always be here. So that happened. And then as I was exposed to this new world and all of the immigration rules and all of these, I went to a school where it was for immigrant kids, only, and hearing about all these things about documents and paperworks, and whether I can go to college, whether I can get financial aid, whether like all of those things, they created a fear within me, a doubt as to whether I can be here or not rightfully. And guess what? Something happened in the paperwork in the following years that I think like there was something my mom was supposed to fill out, and she just didn't even put the two and two together. She didn't fill it out, and I got a deportation letter. So that was a manifestation of my internal state of doubt whether I can be on this land or not. In that beginning, I got the green card before anybody in my family got green card for no reason. I don't know how. It was a miracle. It was a miracle. So what I'm saying is that the only reason I'm addressing this on a grand scale, just because the information somehow entered my field where I'm building this new reality. And because the knowledge of this information, which is exactly why it's so important to deliberately turn things off or choose not to hear whatever you don't want to hear, because this already entered my field, I am going to weave it into my story, because it has to be there now that it's here, right? Now that I'm aware of that is what's going on. So I will say that on an individual level, I know that everybody who is that on an individual level, the situation will reflect their internal state of either fear or complete belief that they deserve to be exactly where they are, right? So let's leave it at that, because that is how this works. But in what to do with this information now in this new world that I'm building, well, I will say that because some of the people will now be either gone back to their original country, or maybe they will just be afraid sometimes to return to work at this moment in time, that this will also create this opening to invite native people and people that are interested in learning about the land and how to cultivate native things on this land. It basically created a void for those people to come in now. So basically the land is returning to the native people, and that is in my reality, right? This is how it's all going to work out. And again, this is not to say that the people that were working on the land are somehow non-worthy, bad people, or deserves to be out. No, that is not to say that at all. But the information that entered my field is that they're no longer are able to be on those fields, that there is a void. That's all I have to go by, right? It's not, I already told you my innermost opinion and my love for immigrants. But because I am one, we all are one here. But the information that entered is that, there's going to be a void of workers that used to be work there. So in my reality, how am I gonna fill that void? Who with? And then it sets in perfectly that all these native groups that are that whose land has been taken away from them can maybe slowly return onto the land and teach the farmers, the agriculture people, the winemakers about things that can be cultivated on this land, and sustain life and sustain the land itself for many years to come. Now, the beautiful part about all of this is that the native people of this land and the native people of, let's say, Mexico, right, are very closely intertwined together. There is no like clear border, right? There were many, many different tribes. So in a way, I think that the people will be able to re-enter the same land that they were sort of illegally on, but under the status of being just native inhabitants of this land in the first place, right? If their roots go deep, although everybody's intermixed right now. You know, I know people who are extremely like, they are coming from regional nations, but their dad, like this one guy, his dad is Irish. There's French. There, you know, there's like everything is intermixed and intermingled. But this is just to give you an example of how to build a world. First and foremost, you can see that how your decisions will make certain worlds collapse. They will not survive. Certain industries, if you decide to quit smoking, a certain industry will no longer be there. It might emerge as something else, right, and start representing itself like a vaping industry or whatever. But if you say no to that as well, it will no longer be a part of your world. It will no longer exist in your world, and people will be surprised, you know, as you're as you enter this version of the reality. Somebody right next to you who is, you know, drinking and smoking or agrees to certain things, they will see the same reality that you live in a completely different way. And it is so hard to find common language between the two. But the idea is to take action upon things you think are for the betterment of yourself and other beings, right? Or maybe as like take action when you want to set example, when you want to speak louder than with words, right? By taking action. And then the other thing is to have imagination. If you took action on something and you see one world collapsing and another one is trying to be built, but what is it going to be built with? With your imagination. You need to think through what are the potentials for the people in the reality that is collapsing to still be safe and to still be happy, right? And then you begin to play, just like I played, you know, right now, right in front of the camera, exploring the things within my imagination, building that world, and watch how it's going to come together in the most beautiful of ways. How some people will be, who are returning to their native land, let's say in Mexico, are going to reconnect with their land and grow something incredible there, where we can then visit them and learn from them. And they're getting back to their roots while there are other people getting back to their roots here. And then some of the people finding out how deeply rooted they are to the American land, going further back in time, that they are not illegal aliens here at all. If they're Mexicans, they're from Americas. They are American, more American than the Europeans. They've always been here. And that playing slowly into the big scenario where, native original nations from North Continent and original nations from South Continent realize that they are the original inhabitants of this land, and coming together as a beautiful symbiosis and as a beautiful friendship as to how to rebuild this land. And maybe they can come back not as workers, illegal workers on the farm, but they can come back as the rightful, I don't want to say the word owners of the land, but the rightful inhabitants, the rightful, let's say, owners of this land in the first place, right? So I see this right now as a collapsing of one world, and then who will have enough spark and imagination to rebuild it in the best possible way? Because in this reality, in 5D, in quantum reality, anything is possible. All we need to do is speak out our potential possibilities. Because as I'm looking for at the guy who's being interviewed, well, his potential possibility for rebuilding is this. He named several possibilities. He said, well, hopefully the young people of today will, as they grow up older, will take up to drinking wine. So that was one of the things he said, is that hopefully they'll start drinking so that his industry and can survive and his family can survive without having to endure change, drastic change. Now, I don't know, if in my world that is a possibility, because knowing how these mind-altering substances take you further away from this pure communication with universal consciousness. If everybody knew how important it is not to drink, they wouldn't have drunk at all. So I don't know if that possibility will survive in my world or will be possible in my world. It's probably a no. The other possibility is to abandon land, let the grapes rot, maybe sell it and move on, because they can't pass it now from generation to generation as this industry is going out of business. Now, I don't think that's a good way of ending things either. I think there is, as I said, a much more expansive way of looking at it and saying, hey, well, we can't grow grapes, but we have all this land. Let's grow something else. Oh, wait, maybe we'll try growing this. It didn't work. Maybe we try growing this. It doesn't really work here. Okay, who can we ask what grows well here? Oh, let's reach out to native communities. Let's reach out to native communities and ask them what used to grow here. And as they reach out to native communities, they realize that native communities and native inhabitants that know this land best are the people who've been working there illegally in the first place. And so everything comes full circle and everybody returns to their rightful place in their rightful way, but only then those who are feeling the victims in this situation need to, hi honey, I'm your beautiful baby. Oh, she's rubbing herself on the tripod. My rosy blood, Oh, she came for some cases. And so we can create a better outcome for everybody if we look at it differently and not try to save something that is clearly trying. I'm gonna open up the door. That is clearly trying to collapse and reemerge as something new. So that is my video for today about the collapsing of old realities, of old worlds, and what to do on their place to rebuild, right? And how to make sure that as you are collapsing one reality, you are saving all the people who are connected to it, and not just letting them ow she's biting, and not just letting them go down with that reality, right? And starting by creating something in your imagination, and then watch as this universal consciousness works with you to create that reality around you. So, all right, I hope this was something you can relate to, maybe understand, or maybe try to understand, and try to move forward with an open heart, with clarity, with a sense of responsibility for the actions that you take. And this is another thing that I wanted to say, that, you know, the original nations of this land, they knew this. They knew that they were living in this realm, that everything was possible like this. Because if you read literature about their traditions, their ways of life, it is a big thing from the elders to teach the rest of the community that every decision you make affects 7 generations behind you and 7 generations in front of you. So every decision you make creates a whole new world for generations to come. And because they knew that time is not linear but is breathing, just like I'm believing that universe is breathing, we go back and forth in time, thus you're also affecting your past, as which past you're aligning your future with. Basically, that's another video to try to explain that, but it's so easy here. But then it's a completely different story to bring it out into a linear way, into a storyline. But they knew that that's how it works. They knew that every decision we make affects the realities. It can collapse a reality or create a reality, and that reality that we are creating is going to be connected to the generations that come, our bloodlines, or also all of our relations, our immediate 360, my cat's bloodline, now my everybody who is involved, in my immediate 360, which right now there is a bunch of people here in my building that I know, that I say hi to. So they're now part of my reality, and every decision I make will affect their reality as well. When we're in such close proximity, if I go ahead and spray outside with some chemical, everybody's gonna breathe it in, and it happens all the time. I keep breathing in people's choices all day long, and I don't necessarily agree with them, but that's how close we are, how closely we are interacting with one another when we're in 3D in the city. So every decision we make will affect big things, big realities. All right, before I get into more confusing stuff, I will stop here and I will add on to this later as we explore more videos, more topics in further videos. I love you guys. Have a good night.